The Department of Justice releasing its remaining documents from the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Deputy Attorney General Todd Bland saying the records will be posted throughout the day, including more than 2,000 videos, more than 180,000 images, some of the material so explicit you have to verify being an adult before you can actually access it.
Many of Epstein's survivors have been publicly pushing for years to have these documents come out, but it took a law passed with near unanimous support in Congress to finally bring these documents to light.
Victims of Mr. Epstein have gone through unspeakable pain, and there's nobody that should say anything differently. And I to the extent that there's frustration, I understand where that comes from, just from what we know about Mr. Epstein. I hope that the work that the men and women within this department have done over the past 2 months.
Welcome back to U.S. Focus Today. While everyone is distracted by Donald Trump's latest tweet meltdown, the Department of Justice has just dropped a massive bombshell. Over 2,000 explicit videos and 180,000 graphic images from the Jeffrey Epstein files. Material so disturbing you have to verify you're an adult just to see it. But here's what they're already desperately trying to bury. These documents contain serious allegations directly involving President Trump, including claims he sexually abused a minor. Of course they do. Trump's own Justice Department is redacting, removing pages, and calling everything untrue and sensationalist. How shockingly convenient. This is a cover-up in real time, and today we're exposing exactly what they don't want you to see.
NPR investigation reveals the Justice Department withheld portions of the Jeffrey Epstein files that contain allegations involving President Trump, including material tied to claims that Mr. Trump sexually abused a minor, and that some pages mentioning him were removed from the public record. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee called that out today, saying the DOJ's withholding of information could amount to a crime.
And there it is, straight from NPR. While Trump's own Justice Department is supposed to be releasing the Epstein files, they're quietly withholding the parts that mention him by name. Pages removed. Allegations of sexually abusing a minor buried. Democrats are already calling it potential criminal obstruction. Of course they are. This is the same administration that loves to scream transparency every chance it gets, unless the spotlight lands on Trump himself. Then suddenly, the black bars appear, the pages vanish, and the whole thing becomes classified faster than you can say Mar-a-Lago. How shockingly predictable. The man who claims he's the victim of the biggest witch hunt in history is now the one directing the cover-up from the Oval Office.
CNN's Evan Perez is here with us now. And Evan, there's been a lot of speculation about President Trump being named in these files, and we're learning now the FBI actually compiled a list of allegations related to the president back in August. What are you learning?
Right, so this is in 2025 that the FBI compiled a list of all of these sexual assault allegations that involve the president of the United States, that some of them stretch back years, decades, that were associated with this case. And, we don't know what of anything is actually credible here. As a matter of fact, we believe that a lot of these could not be verified. Some of them were second and third hand accounts that people were relating things.
Listen to that. The FBI didn't just stumble across a rumor. They had to sit down and compile an entire official list of sexual assault allegations against the sitting president of the United States. Some going back decades, tied directly to the Epstein case. But sure, let's all pretend it's not credible. That's Trump's favorite defense. Deny, deflect, and let your own DOJ hide the receipts. This isn't speculation anymore. This is documented. This is the government admitting there's a paper trail so dangerous they had to redact it before the public could see it. And yet Trump still walks around acting like none of this exists. The bombshell isn't just that the allegations are there, it's that his own administration is working overtime to make sure you never read the full story. Stay right here, because what they tried to hide next is even worse.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years.
But here's where the story goes from suspicious to outright
face.
Embarrassing for the Trump administration. While they're busy withholding and redacting allegations specifically tied to President Trump, the Department of Justice managed to completely botch the one job they were supposed to get right: protecting the identities of Epstein's victims. In a stunning display of incompetence, the DOJ released thousands of documents with catastrophic redaction failures. Victim names that were supposed to be blacked out were left in plain sight. Even explicit images and personally identifying information were accidentally made public. Nearly 100 survivors had their lives turned upside down again because the very agency claiming to seek justice couldn't handle basic document security. Federal Judge Richard M. Berman had seen enough. He publicly called out the government for these serious redaction errors and scheduled a hearing to hold them accountable. But here's the kicker. Once the judge got involved and the spotlight was on him, the DOJ suddenly found the ability to fix the mess. They pulled thousands of documents offline, promised rapid corrections, and Judge Berman ended up canceling the hearing, stating he was pleased but not surprised that the issues were finally resolved. Pleased? Maybe. Surprised? Not at all, because it took a federal judge threatening them with public accountability before Trump's Justice Department decided to do their job properly. Let that sink in. This is the same Department of Justice that is selectively hiding portions of the Epstein files involving the president, while simultaneously failing so spectacularly at protecting innocent victims. If they can't get simple redactions right when the whole world is watching, how can anyone trust that the heavy redactions around Trump's name are purely for national security or ongoing investigations? Of course, the official line is that it was just technical or human error. How convenient. When it comes to protecting powerful people, especially the one currently sitting in the Oval Office, the excuses flow easily. But when victims' privacy is destroyed in the process, suddenly it's an oops. This redaction disaster isn't just a technical glitch. It's a glaring symptom of a broken system, one that appears far more concerned with shielding the elite than with delivering real transparency or justice. And if they're this sloppy when victims are involved, imagine how carefully they're protecting the names of other powerful men mentioned throughout these files. The judge had to slap them into action. That tells you everything you need to know about how seriously this administration is taking the Epstein document release. Stay with me, because even Republicans and Democrats are now admitting the redactions go way too far and they're protecting at least half a dozen powerful men. You won't believe who's at the top of that list. Now this is where the mask really slips. After watching the DOJ fumble victim protection so badly that a federal judge had to publicly slap them into fixing their own mess, even the lawmakers who actually got to see the real unredacted files are going public, and they're not mincing words. A Republican and a Democrat, one from Kentucky, one from California, Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna, two politicians who agree on almost nothing, sat in that secure room, read every single page without the black bars, and came out saying the exact same thing. At least half a dozen of the most powerful men in America are being deliberately shielded by over-the-top redactions. Not maybe, not possibly. They reviewed the raw documents and concluded the public is being fed a sanitized, heavily censored version while the real connections stay hidden. Think about that for a second. These aren't conspiracy theorists or late-night podcasters. These are sitting members of Congress with the highest security clearances. They saw what you and I will never see. And instead of staying quiet like good little insiders, they went on national television to tell America the system is protecting powerful men. Again, of course, Trump's name is already sprinkled throughout the redacted files we Times are Times allowed to see. Of course, his own Justice Department is the one doing the redacting. And now two lawmakers from opposite sides of the aisle are essentially confirming that the heaviest black bars are reserved for the biggest names, the ones whose exposure would actually matter. How convenient that the man currently running the Department of Justice just happens to be the one whose alleged connections keep getting protected. This isn't partisanship anymore. This is bipartisan agreement that the fix is in, the elite protection racket is alive and well, and it's operating at the highest levels of the Trump administration. Massey, a conservative Republican who has criticized Trump before, didn't have to say this. Khanna, a progressive Democrat, didn't have to say this. They chose to because what they saw was so damning that staying silent would make them complicit. And here's the part that should make every American furious. While judges, investigators, and cleared members of Congress get the full story, you and I get the censored scraps and a polite little disclaimer that some claims may be untrue, powerful get the truth, the public gets the cover story. This bipartisan bombshell proves one thing beyond doubt. The redactions aren't about protecting victims or national security, they're about protecting the club. And right now, the man at the very top of that club is the same man whose Justice Department is deciding what we're allowed to know. The walls are starting to crack. Even Trump's own party is admitting the emperor has no clothes, or in this case, no credible deniability left. Stick around, because when we get to the 3.5 million pages they dumped with that pathetic, untrue, and sensationalist warning, you'll see exactly how desperate this cover-up has become. And now we reach the grand finale of this so-called transparency operation. After two lawmakers from opposite parties just admitted that powerful men are being shielded, the Trump Justice Department proudly announces they have dumped 3.5 million pages of Epstein files into the public domain. 3.5 million. That's not a document release, that's a data dump designed to drown you in paper while they quietly wave a little disclaimer in your face. Buried right in the official press release is this gem. Some of the material contains untrue and sensationalist claims about President Trump that were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. How thoughtful of them. They hand you millions of pages, point directly at the parts that mention Trump and say, by the way, this stuff about your president is probably fake news. Then they pat themselves on the back for being transparent. It's the ultimate Trump era move. Flood the zone with so much information that nobody can find the truth, then preemptively discredit anything damaging by calling it sensationalist. Meanwhile, the unredacted versions, the ones without the black bars, without the missing pages, without the convenient disclaimers, stay locked away in secure rooms for judges, investigators, and a handful of cleared lawmakers. You get the censored, flagged, possibly fake version. They get the raw truth. This disclaimer isn't transparency, it's a preemptive alibi. It's Trump's Justice Department telling the country in advance, if anything bad comes out about me, just remember we already told you it's probably a lie. The same people who botched victim protections, who over-redacted powerful names, and who just got called out by their own Republican colleague are now deciding which parts of the Epstein story are untrue. And they expect us to trust them. What that massive gap between what they see and what we see really means for Trump's legal exposure and why the machinery of justice is still quietly turning. After dumping 3.5 million pages and slapping that cute little untrue and sensationalist disclaimer on everything about Trump, the real game is happening somewhere else entirely in the secure rooms where the unredacted files live. Most people think unredacted just means fewer black bars. Cute, but that's not what it means at all. Unredacted means the full names, the exact dates, the flight logs, the witness statements, the photos, the messages, the complete picture of who was in Epstein's orbit and what they actually did there. No missing paragraphs, no convenient omissions, just the raw, unfiltered truth that judges, senior investigators, and a handful of cleared lawmakers of America gets the watered-down, disclaimer-covered version. And here's the part Trump desperately hopes you never understand. That gap matters in court. Even if every single allegation against him is labeled untrue in the public files, the judges reviewing the unredacted originals don't have to believe the disclaimer. They see the source material. They see the patterns. They see the connections that were deliberately blacked out before you ever laid eyes on them. That evidence can still be used to open new investigations, support civil suits, or quietly build criminal referrals long after the public has moved on to the next scandal. Trump can tweet fake news until his fingers bleed. His Justice Department can wave that disclaimer like a shield. But the machinery of justice doesn't run on tweets or press releases. It runs on what the judges actually see behind closed doors. And right now, those judges are looking at the complete, unredacted story of Donald Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Not the sanitized version, not the one with half the sentences missing, the real one. This is why the redaction game is so dangerous for him. Every over-redacted name, every withheld page, every untrue flag they added isn't just hiding information, it's creating a permanent record that the most powerful people in the legal system can still access. The public gets the cover story. Trump's DOJ gets to claim transparency. But the people who can actually do something, they get the truth. And that quiet, invisible gap is exactly where Trump's legal exposure lives. Not in tomorrow's headlines, but in the sealed files and private briefings that never make it to your screen. The cover-up isn't foolproof. The machinery is still turning. And the longer they keep us in the dark, the more pressure builds to rip those black bars away once and for all. The botched redactions, the judge having to slap the DOJ into doing its job, the bipartisan bombshell from Massey and Khanna, the 3.5 million pages dumped with that pathetic little untrue claims disclaimer, and the massive gap between what the powerful get to see and what they let you see. One thing is crystal clear. This isn't transparency. This is a cover-up wearing a cheap transparency costume. Trump's own Justice Department is releasing just enough to say we did something while working overtime to bury the parts that actually matter. They redact his name, they flag his allegations as sensationalist, they hide the full story behind black bars, and then have the nerve to call it justice. But here's the truth, they can't redact. The machinery is still turning. Judges have the unredacted files, investigators have the real evidence. And even some Republicans are starting to admit the emperor has no clothes. This story isn't going away. The pressure from victims, from honest lawmakers, and from all of you watching right now is building every single day. And that pressure is the only thing that has ever forced this kind of system to crack. So let me ask you something straight up. What do you think they're still hiding? Drop it in the comments. Be honest, be loud. Because the louder we get, the harder it is for them to keep those black bars in place. If you're tired of watching the same powerful people protect each other while the rest of us get the censored version of reality, hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to see it, and subscribe with notifications.
That's it, y'all. You want to find out where this is? It is on, well, if I could get down here, U.S. Focus Today. Pick it apart, guys. Love to the collective. Peace, love, and light.